Last year, my girlfriend Jess and I went up to our cabin by the lake for a little getaway. We were looking forward to some peace and quiet, and we brought our dog, Max, with us. He's a friendly golden retriever, and we thought he enjoyed the open space. We arrived at the cabin around noon on Friday. The weather was perfect, and the lake was calm. We unloaded the car, set up our things, and let Max run around while we unpacked. He was happy and playful, chasing after sticks and splashing in the water. Everything seemed normal. That evening, we decided to have a bonfire. We put on Max's leash and tied it to a tree near the fire pit so he could still be a part of the fun, but wouldn't run off. He was content, lying down near us while we roasted marshmallows and talked. Around 10 p.m., Jess and I went inside the cabin to get more firewood. We were gone for maybe 10 minutes. When we came back outside, Max was gone. We called his name and searched the immediate area, but there was no sign of him. We figured he might have wandered off a bit, so we called him louder and looked around the cabin and the nearby woods. No luck. By midnight, we were pretty worried. We searched the area with flashlights, but the woods were dense and dark. We decided to call it a night and to continue to look for him in the morning. At dawn, Jess and I started searching again right away. We walked deeper into the woods, calling for Max. We noticed something strange. There were deep, wide footprints around the cabin. They didn't look like any animal tracks I'd seen before. The prints were almost human in shape, but much larger. Around noon, we found something horrifying near the edge of the woods. It was a small clearing with signs of a struggle. There were tufts of Max's fur scattered around and a few bloodstains. But that wasn't the worst part. There were scraps of what looked like ripped clothing and the unmistakable scent of decay. We decided to get the police involved. A local officer came out and helped us search the area. When he saw the footprints and the clearing, his face went pale. He didn't say much, but he suggested we head back into town and stay there until further notice. Later that day, the officer called us with unsettling news. He mentioned that there had been reports of a creature in the area, something people describe as almost looking human, but not quite right. They said it had been spotted in the woods for years, but no one had ever seen it up close. The whole situation felt surreal. We ended up staying at a hotel in the next town over, for fear of whatever that creature was. Tragically, we never found Max. Both me and my girlfriend were absolutely heartbroken. I'm sharing this story as a warning, because I want people to be aware. If you're ever staying in a remote area, or a cabin by a lake, keep your pets close and be cautious. I don't know what we encountered, but it's not something I want anyone else to experience. Rest in peace, Max, wherever you are. I've always considered myself an outdoorsy kind of man. Anything that had to do with fishing, hunting, or being outside in nature, I was down. A few years back, my family and I decided to go rent out a cabin out in North Carolina. Thankfully, my family shared the same joy of camping like me, and were very excited to go. For context, my family consisted of my wife Laura and our 2 kids, Emily and Jacob. It was a cozy little cabin that we rented. It was high up in the mountains, and when we finally arrived, the views of the landscape were absolutely breathtaking. I should also note that my wife has this sort of sixth sense. Like, she's someone who can detect when the vibe is off, or someone may have bad intentions. After we admired the scenery and started to unpack our things into the cabin, Laura came up to me and said she had a weird feeling about the place. Being that I had just driven for 8 hours to get here, I downplayed her concerns and said that we just need to relax and everything will be fine. I wish I had listened to her. That first night, everything seemed normal. We played board games, watched a Disney movie, and then eventually went to bed. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. Laura was fast asleep next to me, and the kids were sleeping in their room. It's hard to describe, but I woke up because I felt watched. Thinking I was being overdramatic, I decided to go into the kitchen and get water and just clear my mind. I quietly walked there in order not to wake up anyone else. The kitchen was tiny and had one window in it that faced the forest. As I was filling up my glass, something darted across the window from outside. I froze, paralyzed with fear. I wiped my eyes, trying to focus as I had just woken up, and looked out the window. It was very dark outside, and the moon was casting high shadows on the trees. I calmed myself down and told myself it was just the shadows I was seeing and nothing else. I finished my water and went to bed. The next morning, Laura and me were out in the kitchen drinking coffee. Our daughter Emily came in, tears in her eyes, saying that she couldn't find Franklin, which was her stuffed animal. I calmed her down and told her that it's somewhere here and we will find it. Well, me and my wife looked everywhere for that animal. We honestly could not find it, which was just bizarre, as she had just had it with her the night before. I took my family hiking that day as a way to clear the air and to calm everybody down. That night, again, I woke up around 2 a.m. I had that same feeling that I was being watched. Trying to deny this creepy feeling, I went back to the kitchen to get some water. I was on more alert this time and started looking out the window to show myself that there was only shadows out there. But as I stared out the window, I noticed something disturbing. Hanging from the nearest tree was my daughter's animal, Franklin. It was hung up by a rope around its neck, swaying gently in the night wind. Then, from the shadows of the trees, someone appeared. He looked like this big, burly man. I couldn't see his face, but he stood there, facing me, and then he waved. Instant fear gripped my heart. Without any warning, I woke up my entire family, grabbed a few important belongings, and ushered them quickly into the car. My kids were crying hysterically, but my wife had this look of understanding on her face. As I started to pull away, I saw in my rear view that big man now standing at the front door of the cabin and watching us as we drove away. My heart was pounding, and we did not stop once during the 8-hour drive back home. I explained this all to my wife as we drove, and she said she knew there was something wrong with that cabin. As much as I love the outdoors, we have not visited a cabin since then. I refuse to put my family in that type of danger again, and we have resorted to having backyard sleepovers instead. Never again. When I was young and dumb, me and my friends liked to go exploring all over. We lived out in Falling Waters, Pennsylvania. If you don't know where that is, it's just a big town out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees. Well, one day, me and my friend Daniel were off of school, and we decided we wanted to go exploring in the nearby woods. We would always find cool things out there, like old bikes, empty bottles of alcohol, and sometimes even money. We had been wandering exceptionally far into the woods this time, and that's when we stumbled upon a cabin. But not a good cabin. This thing was run down. All the windows were shattered, there were holes in the roof, and the porch was sagging. Daniel, who was always more braver than me, said we should go inside and explore. Not wanting to look like a bitch, I agreed. We walked in and were instantly hit with the worst smell that I ever smelled. It was as if rotten meat and spoiled milk were all blended up in a blender and then sprayed around the place like Febreze. I seriously almost threw up from it. We decided to cover our noses with our shirts and continued to explore. We walked into what I assumed was once a bedroom. There was nothing in there except a single beat-up chest. It took a while, but we managed to pry it open. Inside it was a single photo. It was an old Polaroid of a woman holding a baby. And it was super creepy, as the mother in the photo wasn't smiling, but she had this blank expression on her face. We were starting to get a little freaked out at this point, when we heard a creak directly from behind us. We both turned around and nearly shit ourselves. Standing in the doorway was this lady. She looked homeless, her eyes were sunken in, and she had on raggedy clothes. She had this weird, unnatural smile. like it was too big. She pointed at the photo I was holding and said in a voice that sounded like it had been smoking cigarettes since birth to put my mother down. She took a step forward. She was completely barefoot, and I could see her nails were dark yellow and haven't been cut. I placed the photo slowly back down in the chest and put my hands up, signaling that we meant no harm. She was standing a few feet away from us at this point. I could see there were bugs in her hair and maybe only 4 or 5 teeth. She looked directly at me and said, "I've entered a house that does not belong to me." I said, "Sorry, we didn't mean anything by it." She looked at me again and said, "That's what the last kid said." Daniel and me were on the same wavelength and simultaneously bolted out of the room at the same time. We ran down the hall and burst out the front cabin door. I thought we were scot-free, but one of the floorboards broke under my foot and I fell and sliced my leg. Daniel turned around to come help me. He pulled me up just as the lady appeared behind me. The last thing I remember her yelling at us as we ran through the woods was, "I'll see you in hell." We ran like our lives depended on it until we made it back into town. The cut on my leg was pretty severe. My parents had to take me to get about 10 stitches. When they asked what happened, I told them I tripped over a rock. Daniel and I never went back to that cabin. I'm in my late 20s now, and Daniel and me have remained friends. We still talk about that cabin and that lady. Sometimes I'll still have nightmares of her chasing me through the woods. Like I said, we were young and dumb, and we deserved the horror that fell upon us.